and I wanna shit on Steven Jackson real quick, and I don't want to shit on Steven Jackson because then Steven Jackson probably beat the shit out of me if he ever heard this. You know what I mean? Listen, Steven will give you the hands. Matt Barnes will drive here. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Justice for the blind, just something that'll find in the rhymes that are coming from my mind.
All right. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Good evening. It is no longer the afternoon. I'm sorry. I'm never going to get this right.
They didn't know what time of the day it was.
That's true. But you know what? The thing is, if anyone from my job ever saw this, I need them to, at the very least, believe that this is happening after work.
That is true. Yeah.
Good evening. Good late evening after a long, arduous day at the office, being AKA my house. Welcome to this. I don't know what episode this is, a 476ers podcast. I haven't done an episode in a while, so this will be great. Oh, you know what, Vic? The other thing we were going to talk about is the NBA coming back. So we'll talk about that as a segment next at odds. Anyway, that's not the point. Or maybe we'll make it part of the podcast. I don't know yet. We'll figure that out.
Yep.
I'm thinking on the fly. Everything's on the fly on this one, except for our argument right now. So we're going to argue today a little bit. All right. This podcast is going to be in light of the ending of the Last Dance documentary, which is maybe 3 episodes too long, as we mentioned on the 3 to Tango podcast, which you can find the playlist on my website and also on the YouTube channel. If you aren't subscribed yet, you should subscribe, you filthy animals. Because I'm very proud of it. Did a lot of work. We did a lot of work. We all came in, you, I, Vic, you, me, and Fred, you, and I. I don't know what the proper English is to say that. Fred, I, and you, whatever. We all did great, and I'm so very happy about it, very proud of that work. It feels like a complete series of works. Like that could be a DVD box set, you know what I mean? And it'd be fire. So in light of that, we're going to talk about LeBron versus MJ. Now, I want to be clear. Nobody on this podcast thinks that MJ is anything but the greatest basketball player of all time. However, to make it somewhat interesting, I am going to play devil's advocate, and I'm gonna give LeBron James his case. I'm gonna say why he's the greatest player of all time. But I want to just give it clear that I don't think he's the greatest player of all time. I think MJ is the greatest player of all time. But there is a case for LeBron. You and I have talked about this. So, I mean, let's break it down. Let's start it off. I mean, I don't know where to start. We could talk about numbers. I don't even know if it's worth talking about numbers.
Yeah, I don't know. What I do want to say though is like I want it to be clear, like because a lot of what happens when you talk about the greatest of anything, it becomes an argument of semantics of like how you qualify that, right? So like Jay Williams the other day got into like a Twitter back and forth with some random person, and like he's citing like things he does off the court. Right. Starting the school, blah, blah, blah. And the guy's like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Right. And Jay Williams like, well, my definition of the greatest player is this, right? Which is just like, that's not, those are 2 different conversations happening simultaneously, which is a fruitless endeavor. You know?
Yeah, because if that's the case, then Toby's the greatest Sixer of all time. And trust me, Toby is not the greatest Sixer of all fucking time.
Right. So, well, I'm not talking about LeBron James, the person. Nor am I talking about Michael Jordan, the person. I have no idea who they are.
Yep.
Right. If I was to make an assumption, which would be a very large one, because again, I've never met them or anyone who knows them, I would probably want to be friends with LeBron more. But I also, again, don't know. So these are not them as people. They are just we're talking about them simply as basketball players.
Correct. And LeBron is cornier, I think, than MJ. You know what I mean? He's a nicer person, I'm sure, but just as corny as shit. Like, he's a little bit corny.
I think they're both kind of corny. The difference is that MJ don't give a fuck.
Okay.
LeBron clearly cares.
Yeah, he cares. He cares.
Yeah. So let's just put it that way. And in fact, I think that is kind of like the thread that leads to all the reasons why LeBron can't be Michael is that, in fact, he is too nice.
For sure.
So let's say like LeBron plays on the Cavs. He gets to the Cavs, first pick overall, and they're a bad team, right? So a lot of the argument for LeBron defenders, he played on these really bad teams so long, carried them here. blah, 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 right? This is rooted in such ignorance as if it's like the Bulls were amazing.
Correct.
And then they added Michael Jordan and then became more amazing.
Correct.
Right? Which is not the case. I think one of the things the Last Dance does well, or at least hopefully did well, is kind of dispel that myth.
Mm-hmm.
That like you don't get the third pick overall because you're an amazing team.
Yeah, correct.
Like you're fucking trash.
Yeah.
Right? And he was also came into the league where there was the part of the reasons why, and not to say they weren't great teams. The Lakers and Celtics are all-time great teams from the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
But part of the reasons why they were able to dominate the way that they were, because a lot of teams were fucking crazy.
Yeah.
And cocaine and party life was huge.
Mm-hmm.
It was huge. And this is also the boom of AIDS and stuff and HIV.
Yeah.
So a lot is happening in the 80s. It can't really being the result of all the crazy shit that was happening in the 70s in the country.
Yeah.
So they both start in very similar circumstances.
Mm-hmm.
Franchises that were historically shitty.
Mm-hmm.
They had like the Bulls had some moments. The Cavs had, I'd argue, even brighter moments than the Bulls before Michael got there.
Oh, for sure.
Right, but Michael sticks it out, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think part of what The Last Dance does show is how hard it is to stick with the franchise, to have guys come in and leave, have the next guy who's supposed to help you win, he's not good enough. Right? He sticks it out. LeBron does the decision, which I don't really care about anymore. Not that I ever really cared that much, but the more important thing here is he teamed up, right? The super team era starts with him.
Yep.
And ends with him. And the difference is, and what I'm hoping The Last Dance helps is Scottie Pippen did not arrive in the NBA.
Correct.
An all-time great player. Horace Grant, for as good as he is or was very much like a semi-above average player. Dennis Rodman, which again is the most overrated player out of all of this, is like was a complete zero on offense.
Yeah.
Especially by the time he got to the Bulls. So it's just the convenience of ignorance within quote unquote basketball fans, where it's like, but LeBron LeBron didn't have a Scottie Pippen. Well, neither did fucking Michael.
Until he made him.
And even when Scottie was on the team for a long time, he still didn't have Scottie Pippen yet.
Yep.
Right? And like how much easier is it to give up on that and go play with somebody that you like personally, which is a complete advantage, but also someone who's already done it, who's already great.
Yep.
Who's already got to the peak of their powers and happened to be a very, very, very good player. Right? LeBron's never done that. And like that just takes so much more motivation, so much more drive, patience, and that like Michael never gets credit for.
Yeah.
And that's why he was able to sustain such great success on the same team, where LeBron is like these pockets, and unless he's able to build his teams, they don't win. Yeah,
I'm not mad at that opening argument from Victor there. It's not wrong. You know what I mean? We've always talked about essentially the creation of Scottie Pippen, and Scottie points it out in the documentary. I think Horace does too. I mean, but Horace is not an all-star level player. You know what I mean? He is a good player, but Scottie isn't Scottie without MJ's influence. What I would argue, though, what I would argue against this is that, MJ gets drafted into a similar situation as LeBron, but the difference is MJ doesn't have Jerry Krause. I'm sorry, LeBron doesn't have a Jerry Krause, which is just any semblance of a good front office or GM to provide him or to identify somebody who could be a Scottie Pippen, let's say. Now, could you argue that the draft picks that Cleveland got are failures because they didn't become Scotty. Well, we have to go back and look at what do we think Scotty would have done if there is no Michael, right?
Mhm.
And that's impossible to really argue. But could we say that Scotty is a NBA basketball player still? Some of these guys that get drafted with LeBron are guys who are shortly out of the league shortly thereafter.
Mm.
Luke Jackson from the University of Oregon. I don't even know who that is. That's in 2004, 10th overall. They don't have a pick in 2005. 2006, they have 2 second-round picks. Ejike Ugboya, Daniel Gibson, Boobie Gibson, who we know, Shannon Brown. I mean, these guys, very clear ceilings on who these guys are. J.J. Hickson, who I did like at his best, but, it's just, he was nice. Danny Green, who really doesn't find his foothold in the NBA until many years later, and that's in 2009. The draft picks, this all happens from 2009 to 2003. It's just a failure of draft picks. Then they have a couple free agent signings. They lose Carlos Boozer first.
Right.
Who for whatever reason, now Carlos Boozer, I don't know why he left Cleveland. I would say that maybe Carlos Boozer was a little prescient in seeing that, well, LeBron doesn't really play nice with power forwards, which we've always talked about. You know what I mean? LeBron and power forwards, they don't really mix. So Carlos Boozer maybe saw himself having a limited role next to LeBron.
No, I think they didn't want to pay him. I don't think they wanted to pay him.
Which is the other thing, too. Yeah, which the other thing is I think that they didn't want to pay him. Which, again, another failure on the front office. Now, is it a failure in the front office? Carlos Boozer at his best? Is this... is a borderline all-star.
Yeah. I mean, he was better than most of the guys on that team.
Then there's a Larry Hughes sighting for a while.
Yep.
They trade for Mo Williams, who that year at least is a all-star replacement. I don't know if you remember that. Mm-hmm. A lot of people wanted him to be in the all-star game. I don't know why I remember this so clearly. They wanted him in the all-star game. He doesn't get voted in. The next game, he scores 50. And then somebody gets injured. I don't remember who gets injured, and he becomes a replacement in the All-Star game.
Right.
But then essentially when LeBron leaves, and I've always tried to make this argument about how when LeBron left Cleveland, and I see, here's the thing, because this is the other argument, right, for a LeBron, someone who is a LeBron fan.
Right.
When he leaves Cleveland absolutely falls apart. I mean, they are not just bad; they are historically bad at that point.
Yeah.
And it just goes to show how much LeBron meant. But Mo Williams was also very, very bad all of a sudden. You know what I mean? I'm very confused as to what happens to Mo. Now, maybe it's the playoff series, that playoff series, the last playoff series against the Celtics, we knew was weird. You know what I mean? Everybody who watched that knew was weird. And I'm not going to pull up the numbers. The thing is that I don't want to go through the numbers of the playoffs, because you could look at the Magic series from 2000 and was that 2009?
Yeah.
You can look at the Magic series from 2009 and say, well, LeBron scores like 37 a game. You know what I mean? He's like 37, 8, and 8. But we knew watching the series there was something off. You know what I mean? And you can pull up the 2011 Celtics, that series before he leaves to the Heat. Those numbers show, again, a player who is dominant.
2010, right?
Or 2000. Well, it's 2011, isn't it? No, you're right. 2010. I'm sorry, 2010. Yeah. 2010, and you look at the numbers and you say that, well, this is weird. You know what I mean? The numbers are there, but when you watched the series, you knew that there was something off. He was already checked out, essentially, is what it felt like. Even though he had put up these numbers, he was essentially checked out. But, again, they never did him any favors. They couldn't get him any help. I mean, even if they would have gotten him a Chris Bosh, who is not Scotty, right? But it's just something a little bit better. Chris Bosh refuses to go to Cleveland. They get him Shaq at there was an argument on Twitter. I don't know if you saw this. This is someone recently.
I think I did see it.
And I don't know if it was sarcastic. I tweeted at it because I was like, "Are you being sarcastic right now about Shaq's time in Cleveland?" Yeah. You know, as if it was like, oh, people forget that LeBron has Shaq. And I was like, well, wow, if you're being sarcastic, then fine, let's laugh together. If you're not being sarcastic, then you don't even deserve the argument that I had to present to you that this is like very much the tail. It's not just the tail end of Shaq's career, but Shaq should have been put out of his misery at this point in his career. You know what I mean? Like essentially after he leaves Phoenix, it's pretty much over for him. And it's bad. Zydrunas Ilgauskas had a chance at one point, I think maybe to have been his best teammate, but his feet just wouldn't hold up. You know what I mean? He was the most skilled big man he had ever played with. Could have been, like I don't know. I don't know what his ceiling is, but a Vlade Divac maybe higher type player. But his feet just don't hold up, and they just don't ever get him help. So that's my argument there. Is that not only that, we talked about this in the Three to Tango podcast, right? Mm-hmm. That MJ, we talked about this early in the first episode, that MJ has, and listen, here's one thing too about MJ's greatness. And there is a thing, I do believe in this, in nature, that like greatness almost attracts greatness, or like-minded individuals can get attracted to each other through forces that are beyond explanation, right? So MJ's being great. I mean, even to him playing baseball, is being the manager is what's his face? You know what I mean? Is Terry Francona, one of the greatest managers of all time. He's coached by Dean Smith in college. He's in the Olympics in '84. Is coached by Bobby Knight. And then, comes into the league and is who's the first coach he has? I can't remember. Stan Albeck, which is whatever. And then Doug Collins and then Phil Jackson. It's almost like, and Tex Winter, you know what I mean? Who essentially creates the offense that everybody runs today, or runs at least some sort of set from, or does things inspired by the triangle offense in today's NBA. Yeah. It's almost not even fair you can't even compare those things, right? LeBron doesn't have anything like that. You know what I mean? There's just not a coach worth looking at in his time in Cleveland. You know what I mean? Like now, was he uncoachable? I think he becomes uncoachable.
Okay, well, hold on. Let's
Let's
put a pin in that, because that's something different, and then it's a really good point.
Okay.
So you talked about not getting help, which is fair, right? But what I would say, though, is if Jordan had very similar success to LeBron up until the point where the three-peats begin.
Correct.
Right? Where LeBron even actually gets farther. He gets all the way to the finals.
To the finals,
right? In a weird year when they clearly were not ready. But if Michael leaves Chicago before he started winning, then everybody would have said the same thing.
Yeah.
Krause didn't get him any help. Scotty never becomes what he becomes. Mm-hmm. Right? There's no argument of whether or not he's better than Charles Barkley on ESPN's shitty rankings.
Correct.
Right? So it's like because LeBron is like kind of too nice. Not kind of, is too nice. Mm-hmm. He can't bring people up. On the floor, when he's with them, he can play better. Right? But it goes to show, like, when he left, the team was in shambles. Mm-hmm. Right? Which is, yes, to his greatness, but also when Michael left, they were battle ready and tested. They were ready to carry themselves. Mm-hmm. Right? And then eventually it fell apart because people get used to certain levels of success, and there was nothing a Michael Jordan-less Bulls could do to ever live up to the hype that they created. But again, that's kind of like a chicken and egg thing, but I think it was just fair to mention. The coach is also a really good one. Mm-hmm. However, what I want to say is, like, how good are any of these coaches without the guy buying in, right? Mm-hmm. And this is the difference. Another big difference between LeBron and Michael. Michael hates his GM. In fact, he doesn't like any of his coaches. When he's a rookie, he doesn't have the sort of the audacity or cachet to be like, fuck this coach. Mm-hmm. He did not like Doug Collins when he first got there. Mm-hmm. And Doug did everything in his power to make Michael like him. And that's why eventually they got rid of Doug, because he couldn't control the team. And then they hire Phil, or they promote Phil rather. And he's like, fuck this guy. I like Doug. I shoot the ball 37 times with
Yeah.
Doug.
Yeah.
You know. So and then like he famously would ridicule Tex Winter in the same sort of light as Jerry Krause. It wasn't as brash or to the same extent, but anybody who after a certain point would criticize him, he would get offended by.
Yeah.
This is the whole thing why he's not cool with Charles Barkley no more. Tex would be like, pass the ball. He'd be like, fuck you, Tex.
Yeah.
Maybe not those exact words. There's actually a famous video clip, and I'm pretty sure they showed it during The Last Dance, where they're going through a drill. For some reason, Tex Winter's on the floor with these players, and it's like a box out drill. So Jordan goes to box out Tex, and when he does it, he wraps his arms around Tex's back, grabs his pants, and pantses him.
Oh, yeah. I do remember that. Yeah.
That's your coach that you're doing that to.
Yeah.
So it's like he didn't really have the best relationships with these people, but he was so driven by winning, right? That all of that paled in comparison. Where LeBron, that wasn't always the same thing. And in fact, the piece that you shared with me, the first Bill Simmons piece I ever really read in detail was talking about that in particular, right? The sort of like, what is the driving force here? And like, I think it made it clear that winning wasn't always there, or at least doing what it takes to win. LeBron was not, and still isn't, I don't think, willing to do everything it takes to be that ultimate winner. So I think, because my thing is like, LeBron is too good. He eventually would have won in Cleveland. And then we don't know that a couple years, and again, this is why it's a chicken and egg kind of argument, but we don't know that if he doesn't play enough with whoever is on that team, if it's Mo Williams, J.J. Hickson, that any of these guys who had some talent, that they don't develop into something more. Right?
Yeah. Maybe. I don't. Again, and the point I make too, that's exactly why I mentioned them, is because they are shortly after that out of the league. You know what I mean? And it's like, who knows, right? If MJ is in their life, do they become a guy? You know what I mean? Something special. Who knows? In today's day and age, I think it's almost impossible to quantify, just because guys today, I don't even want to do the softer thing or nothing like that. Guys today are different. You know what I mean? Not hard or not soft. They're just different. You know what I mean? I don't want to say that they're soft. They're just different. But to your point about Michael panting Tex and his relationship with his coaches, I would argue that's almost to his detriment a little bit, because, and that should really be to the benefit of the coaches who or just the figures that are around him that are able to overcome some of that strife, kind of, and still endure. You know what I mean? Whereas LeBron is coming in, and LeBron, like, would Tex Winter prefer coaching a LeBron figure, right? Let's just pretend for 1 second. Someone but see, again, this goes back to, we don't know how coachable LeBron was for the first 10 years. I would like to think that he was coachable in the first whatever. And that at the point he gets to Miami, it falls apart. You know what I mean? Because I don't think he really, I don't know if he doesn't necessarily respect Eric Spoelstra, but when he gets, I remember when he got to Miami, there was a piece, I think it was Brian Windhorst who wrote a piece that said something like, the offense they're going to run is going to be something like, when LeBron gets the rebound, then Dwayne Wade gets to score. But then if Dwayne Wade gets the rebound, then LeBron gets to score. Something really crazy like that. They were just going to get out and run, and this was going to be the logic that they would use. Some crazy shit like that. And I'm like, well, that doesn't, like, that. What's the science there? You know what I mean? If Kevin Durant left to find basketball nirvana, you know what I mean, in Golden State, where's the basketball nirvana here? And that's why that team was so limited. That Heat team was limited to a certain extent, because it just never, the pieces never fit. Which is, you know, MJ's ownership and LeBron's GM skills are pretty much on par. You know what I mean? They're both trash at this, at doing that thing outside of playing basketball. So I would say that I would present that argument, right? Is that that's a credit to those guys that played or that coached Michael, that were able to endure through Michael essentially belittling them consistently and constantly, and them essentially being able to rise. Because again, just like Michael will do anything he could to win, these guys also see, well, we need Michael to win. You know what I mean? So we're going to eat this so that we can all win. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whereas that's not a thing that LeBron deals with. Now, LeBron obviously has kind of the other side. He has the passive-aggressive side of this.
Yes.
Where when he hates a coach, it's kind of behind the scenes. And, you know, most famously, David Blatt is like the most famous one that really gets like belittled on TV constantly. Which I think if there were this many cameras and this focus on that at the time with MJ, maybe we would have seen more of them. Like you say, you see Tex get pants. We've seen Michael belittling Jerry Krause. We might have seen more of it. And the spin would have been more negative, I think, now than it was back then. I think back then it was kind of like, I don't know. I just did, back then was just hazing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And now it would be look more like almost bullying, almost.
Yeah, it's like locker room behavior versus.
Yeah, exactly. But LeBron, you know, kind of like coaching behind David Blatt, you know what I mean? And shit like that just didn't go well for David Blatt. Now we don't see David Blatt back in the NBA since. Now, is that because David Blatt, the taste of David Blatt's mouth is so disgusted by LeBron that he never wants to coach in the NBA again? I don't know.
I think it's a lot of, I think so that I think that's a bigger conversation, maybe for another time. But what I will say quickly is with these, I think most of us on the outside looking in, we try to make everything logical and reasonable.
Yeah.
But that's not the end all be all for these general managers, presidents, team owners.
Correct.
Not only do they have to find the right guy, they have to find the right person that also everybody else is cool with too.
Correct.
So it's like I can't hire the smartest basketball mind if the media is gonna fucking say it's the worst hire ever.
Yeah.
Like they're not willing to take those kinds of risks. That's because
true.
they're still in the public relations sort of business.
Yep.
So are you gonna be the owner that hires David Blatt? And have to go through a summer, months and months and months of seeing him getting shitted on, like those same clips start over? Probably not. I mean, he's had so much success, in particular in Israel. Like, I don't doubt that he's good enough to coach in the NBA. Is he going to be Steve Kerr or Brad Stevens or Pop? Probably not. But is he good enough? Yeah, he's good enough.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
But yeah, the coach I will concede to you as well. But the one though caveat is also it's the buy-in, which is what you kind of just talking about.
Yeah.
Without Dwayne Wade there, I don't think Spoelstra lasts.
Probably not.
And without Dwayne Wade saying, like, hold on, man, like, let's give this guy a chance.
Yeah.
Right? Where the thing is about Michael, even when he was not always being the easiest person to be around, he did what he was told. You know, like, and sometimes when the reins had to be pulled back, but once he bought into the triangle, it was over. And you saw in The Last Dance where Joe Dumars was saying, like, oh, man, we beat them, but, like, we saw it.
Yeah,
once they figure this out, I don't know if we're going to be able to handle it anymore.
Yeah.
And they did. We're like, LeBron is like passive-aggressive Rondo.
Yeah.
Where it's like, you don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
Yeah.
I'm the basketball genius, which is true.
Yeah.
Which is true. And the thing is, you can have very successful teams and offenses by letting guys like that control the ball. But we've seen over and over and over again, you can't win the whole thing that way.
Correct. Yeah, and that to me, the argument, and so this is what people I think need to understand. The argument about MJ being greater than LeBron is actually about the things that MJ decides to let go of.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Is him deciding to run through an offense. LeBron does not ever. It's just the LeBron offense. Yeah. I compared him to Peyton Manning like years and years ago.
Right.
Because it was like when Peyton comes in, especially when he went to the Broncos, it was like when Peyton comes in, you do the offense that Peyton does. You know what I mean? Because he's one of the best quarterbacks ever.
Correct.
But he was limited, right? He couldn't win all the he wasn't going to be the winner that Tom Brady was, right? And Tom Brady is you could argue we'll see this year. Is he a product of the system or is he great? What I think is it's just in the middle. It's just he was a great quarterback who is also a product of a great system. And MJ's greatest attribute is him giving into the system to win. You know what I mean? Whereas LeBron now, but this goes back to my coach's argument where it's like, but did LeBron have a coach that had any type of you have to believe that they did, right? The one thing about coaching in the NBA, and you can attest to this or you can tell me I'm wrong. One thing about coaching in the NBA is that the line is very, very thin. All right, between Brad Stevens and between Scott Brooks, is a very thin line. Because if you looked at Scott Brooks' career, let's look at Scott Brooks' career, right? He starts coaching in Oklahoma City, and he's coaching two guys who are incredibly ball dominant, and who knows how much he can actually get them to do anything.
Correct.
You know what I mean? And when Billy Donovan comes in, people are looking at Billy Donovan like, oh, he's not ready for the NBA. He's a bad coach. In fact, there were people saying he was a bad coach. Yeah. In fact, I think Haralabob said, I don't think he's a good coach. And now people are looking like, Billy Donovan's a great coach. You know what I mean? So that line is so razor thin. There are coaches all of these coaches are very good coaches, and then there are great coaches among them, and then some of them just either make the wrong adjustment or just don't have the players to necessarily get the job done for them when it matters.
Yeah.
So there's no way, but there are the instances where like who was KD's first coach in Seattle is Sam Mitchell, right?
I guess so.
I think it's Sam Mitchell. Sam Mitchell tries to put KD at the 2 in Seattle. You know what I mean? It's like, well, why are you doing this, Sam Mitchell? But see, that's the side, or like we've talked about Doc Rivers being a kind of overrated coach. You know what I mean? Is he a leader of men? Yeah. I would say that's what he is. He is a leader of men. Is he a good X's and O's coach? Probably not. But that's the same thing with Phil.
Correct.
You know what I mean? So I think that's the thing with LeBron is how much does coaching matter? We know it mattered for MJ. You know what I mean? Because that is the point that makes MJ ascend, is saying I'm going to give up some of this. And LeBron, does he ever come across a coach worthy, I guess, of taking that from him almost?
I think that is though what I think the issue is. Right?
Yeah, I got you. Yeah.
Technically, probably not. There probably is not a coach. Mm-hmm. Just like there probably isn't actually one for Michael, or there probably was never one for Timmy, or anybody else, or Hakeem. Mm-hmm. But because these other guys were willing to let go, like we see you can treat your teammates like trash. You can physically beat them, right? But by playing within the system, giving a little bit up, empowers them to play their role.
Yep.
Right. So now I can leave for a year and a half, and you guys have somewhat of success because now it's not all of a sudden, holy shit, now we got to dribble the ball, and we have to shoot it, and we have to pass it.
Yeah.
And we have to make decisions. It's not just catching and finishing the play. And then the thing is, like I said, with Spoelstra, he's a great coach, a great coach. And we had all these questions because LeBron decided, I don't know if I trust you.
Correct.
Right? He is actually a great coach.
Yeah.
And with the whole divide between good and great, I think for some coaches it can be a little bit broader than maybe a thin line. But let's say but I was actually going to bring up, right? Scotty Brooks and Doc Rivers. Are they that much different? Like, is there one philosophy someone's better than the other? Probably not. But the difference is, as you said, Doc being very relatable, Doc being able to galvanize people, Doc being able, maybe like you can't tell an NBA player what to do. And as fans, this is the thing that drives me nuts. When why don't you just tell Joel Embiid to get down on the block? Okay, you go tell that 7 foot, 300-pound man who's amazing at this what he should be doing every second of the game. You can't. No one can, right?
Yeah.
Unless he's willing to let that happen. I'm not saying he doesn't. I'm just saying It's not that simple. It's not fucking Madden. It's not 2K. You don't press a button, the player does it.
Yeah. And also, but even also to that, they also don't understand the geometry of a basketball court.
Yeah. Besides the ignorance, but just
correct.
just that idea in a vacuum.
Correct.
So like the divide, I think, is a little bit bigger for some coaches. Like Brad Stevens, Pop, I think they're just a higher tier.
Yeah, Nick Nurse.
Yeah, Nurse. Well, they're a higher tier,
Mm-hmm.
but like even like amongst themselves, right?
Mm-hmm.
Within your own tier, like who is better and best is really based on like is really subjective.
Yeah.
But yeah, getting somebody to like Pop didn't get Timmy to believe in Pop.
Mm-hmm.
Timmy was willing to take that risk.
Yeah.
Right, and that's really what it comes down to. It's like Michael played 7 years, 8 years, 9 years before he won a title. I don't know. In his first 10 years, where it's like within that first 10 years, you're like, all right, well, I've done all this, and I'm still in the same place.
Mm-hmm.
So eventually, try something different.
You said Michael?
Yeah.
I think it's 7 years.
Yeah, right, because it's
85.
Yeah, he got drafted in 84 and then 91. He wins the final.
So 6 years or 7 years. I'm sorry.
7, yeah. So, but like, and I know that like in hindsight, right? It's easy for like fans to be like, it just took 7 years. But when you're in it, it feels endless, especially when you're losing to the same team over and over again.
Correct.
So yes, yeah. So I would agree that at least in Cleveland, the first run, he doesn't have a great coach. But my counter would be that even if he did, we wouldn't know.
Yeah, the line is thin between knowing whether he would have or would not have. It's all dependent on whether he was willing to buy in.
Correct, which I don't think he would have been able to in Cleveland because he just didn't. He was not used to doing it, and because he had some like Mike Brown, like is definitely not a good coach.
Yeah,
and like having those experiences, he's like, no, these motherfuckers don't know what they're talking about.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
And the other thing too is him coming from high school. Like, you think a high school coach is telling LeBron what to do?
Correct.
No.
Yeah.
In fact, his coach was was the starting point guard's dad, and the only reason that guy started was because his dad was the coach. But anyway,
yeah.
So it's like, no, you're not telling LeBron what to do. You just go do LeBron things.
Yeah, correct.
Because you're LeBron, and somehow you're in high school.
Yeah.
So that is his experience in basketball, not even really being coached.
Yeah, correct.
And that's to his detriment.
Yeah, and that's exactly right. See, and that those like these are the things that are really impossible to break down, right? Because that's the point, right? Is like I was saying earlier about MJ kind of seeming to always find the right place. Him going to college, well, I mean, he's also not LeBron in high school. You know what I mean? He doesn't necessarily have.
Oh no.
The trajectory that, I mean, LeBron is recognized, by the 10th grade? That's, this is the next guy. You know what I mean? And that doesn't exist for Michael at that time.
No, Michael doesn't even get a scholarship. He's a senior. That's
what I'm saying. So Michael is almost allowed time to be coached, go to college. He is a product of a coach. Not a product of the coach, I'm sorry, but it's just like he's able to be coached. You know what I mean? He's coachable. He's allowed to be coached at this point. LeBron, at this point, by the 10th grade, everyone knows he's the next guy. He's in the NBA. He's so much greater than everyone around him.
Yeah.
That he doesn't even get the opportunity to be coached. You know what I mean? So it's like that's a thing that is hard to measure. You know what I mean? But to your point, that's a check mark to MJ. You know what I mean? It's not anyone's fault. It's not, it is what it is. This is what you chalk up. You have to chalk that up to the universe. This is just kind of how it plays out. And in fact, this is but to also LeBron's credit, this is what makes him great. You know what I mean? He's not really coached. You know what I mean? He has a fucked up life just like everyone else. He comes up, he manages to make it to the NBA. Great. He's a genius. I mean, he's a basketball genius. You know what I mean? It's not just the 6'8". Yeah, he's 6'8", because this is an argument that I hear from some MJ fans that would argue, well, but LeBron, I mean, all he does is just run and dunk up and down or something. So you're not understanding the game. You know what I mean? You're not quite understanding LeBron. Yeah, correct. He is bigger. He is faster. He is stronger than everybody. There was a time when MJ was way faster than anybody, just because MJ was fast as shit. And in today's NBA, guess what? Would also still be fast as shit, and the most graceful player on the court. You know what I mean? Like the idea that MJ could not exist in today's NBA, or some whatever weird argument you want to make, that is, cut it out. You know what I mean? He is as athletic, as fast, as strong, as the most graceful basketball player we've probably ever seen, honestly.
Yeah.
But LeBron's greatness is the IQ. You know what I mean? Is the genius on the court. It's the passing and everything else, seeing every angle that are the angles that are only reserved for the Michael Jordans and the Magic Johnsons and the Larry Birds, the guys who can see it. The reason I said Michael Jordans just now is because the idea that MJ wasn't a great passer needs to be dispelled also. You know what I mean? He just wasn't asked to like you said, he was willing to give up handling the ball as much as LeBron was willing to handle.
Correct. Yeah.
But let's talk about LeBron's time in Cleveland real quick.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, not in Cleveland, in Miami.
Okay.
All right. There is no argument for a LeBron fan for year one. You know what I mean? The loss to Dallas is a stain.
Oh yeah.
On his reputation.
And we forget about it so much.
Yeah. It is a stain on his reputation. It needs to be at the forefront of the argument for why MJ is the greatest, is because LeBron's time in Dallas did not go as planned. And this is not one of those where we bring up the Magic or the Celtics and you look at his numbers tell a different story than the game. The numbers tell a story that the game also tells us. You know what I mean? His numbers in that series are trash. They're not good. I think he's like sub 20 points a game, terrible percentage. And I understand that what's this dude's name? Why is it escaping me? The Matrix with the ugly jump.
Oh, Shawn Marion.
Shawn Marion, yeah, it is Shawn Marion's duty to guard LeBron for most of the game. But I will never, ever, ever forget watching LeBron back away from being unable to post up J.J. Barea, being unable to post up Jason Terry. That's one thing that I do want to mention. People always point to the LeBron posterizing Jason Terry, which is I don't even think that's a poster, because I don't think posters to me are when LeBron dunks on like a big dude, you know what I mean? Which he has a million of. He has a million of those too. You know what I mean? The Jason Terry one isn't. The reason why people bring up the Jason Terry dunk and mention about how vicious it is because Jason Terry, there was a feud. The feud was that Jason Terry in the finals was essentially talking shit to LeBron and was defending him on certain plays, and LeBron wouldn't do anything. So when LeBron dunked on Jason Terry in Boston, it was a monkey off the back. You know what I mean? It was more symbolic than it was vicious as a dunk. So, but this is the argument that I am going to pose here. That Mavericks team is very good. I'm not going to say it's great. You know what I mean? It's not the worst of the last 20 years though. I mean, and also we get Dirk put on one of the greatest playoff runs we've ever seen. Pretty much that his playoff run through 2011 is incredible. You know what I mean? It's one of the better playoff runs. The numbers are crazy. I think it's like 32 a game or something. The averages are through the roof. This is Dirk. It's Dirk essentially ascending and dispelling all of the bad shit that was said about Dirk. You know what I mean? It's Dirk becoming great, is what I'm saying. And LeBron couldn't get out the way of that. But that's not my argument. My argument would be that, and you've heard this argument before. All right?
Yeah.
But I'm going to present it a little bit differently.
Okay.
To your point about what you said about what Joe Dumars said, right?
Yep.
Next year we're not going to be able to beat them. But we also know that the Pistons start falling apart the next year, right? I think Isaiah gets injured the next year, or is it 2 years later he gets injured?
I don't know. I don't think it's next. I don't think it's the following year, but I'm not sure.
I think it might be 2 years, but they're getting older. All right, They're getting older. They've been deep in the playoffs to the finals. They are very physical. I think maybe Lambeer does get injured. I can't remember, but the team starts breaking up. They weren't going to beat the Bulls next year because it was over for them. You know what I mean? So I would argue that first Lakers team that they face now, they face Magic. This is Magic the year before Magic leaves. So it's never been clear to me. I don't even want to talk about the HIV. I don't know if it has any impact on Magic in that series. We do know that the defense played by Scotty and MJ have an impact on Magic that series, but also that team is whatever. James Worthy. I mean, I've heard people argue that James Worthy is overrated. I don't think he's overrated or underrated. I think he's properly rated. He's just James Worthy. You know what I mean? He was a great third banana, and then could be your second best player at times, right? They have James Worthy towards the end, Magic towards the end, Vlade Divac, a young Vlade who is Vlade. I mean, that team isn't moving the needle, is what I would say, right?
Magic is still very good. He only leaves because the league makes him leave.
Yeah.
He was still very good. And Vlade actually is very good too.
He's very good. Yes.
There's a game of like 15 and 14 or something like that.
But that's not Kareem, is what I'm saying.
Of course not. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
No.
You know what
I mean? But neither is this. Neither is the Maverick team he loses to.
No, but listen, what I'm saying is no, and you're right. That Maverick team, there's no argument for the Maverick team. What I'm doing is I'm doing the whataboutism that has been made famous by the Trump supporter. Okay, you're bringing up 2011, but what about we look at some of the finals teams that Michael faced? The Suns team is an all-time great team that doesn't win. I think that's the only all-time great team.
I think Portland is too.
I don't agree with that, but we talked about this too on the podcast. I don't even know if I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. I think maybe I just love that Sonics team too much. I think that Sonics team is better than Portland. In my opinion.
They're not.
I think they are.
No, they don't
just
have.
Because you said it that way, I don't care.
They don't have the same depth as Portland, but either way though, there's two things for Dallas that will forever. There were just two of the things that will forever knock him down. Is Jordan doesn't lose to teams that he's better than.
Yeah.
Just does not happen.
Yeah.
The only time he loses the series when he played like 20 games.
Mm-hmm.
So I know that like other podcasts have done things where like, oh, you know, he wasn't as bad as you think, but that's fine. I don't care. He was playing
that Maverick series?
No, we're talking about Michael. We're talking about Michael in the Orlando series. They lose.
Oh, okay, yeah.
But he was playing baseball earlier that year. I'm not counting that.
Yeah, I don't.
So he doesn't lose to teams in the playoffs that the Bulls are better. It just doesn't happen once. Once he starts winning finals, it's just winning finals.
Correct.
Right? Also, that that 2011 series just highlights the biggest hole in the LeBron resume, and it's not even like a changeable one. It's what we learned about him the most after 2010 is that he couldn't handle the pressure. Mm-hmm. Where Michael lived for it.
Yeah.
Not only did he live for like, give me the shot, play the best defense, put all the best players on that side, and now let me play. Where LeBron was the opposite. And I would say to his credit, now he is not afraid of the moment.
Yeah.
He's cool with the pressure. And I think more than anything else, and we'll talk about this at the end, I said this is not a shit on LeBron James podcast for me. This is just saying, as great as LeBron is, this is why Michael is greater, is that he doesn't have these moments where he can't handle it. Right? Like even if you make the argument before this, like all those Pistons losses or losses to the Celtics, that's fine. He's learning, but once he reaches that point, once he gets to the finals, it's just straight W's from there, right? And he's fine with that moment. And not only that, he gives his teammates confidence because they have him on their side.
Yeah.
Where I'll never ever forget watching LeBron stand in the right corner with Jason Terry lagging off like 6 feet.
Yeah.
And it's like that could never ever happen if you have Michael Jordan on your team.
Well, and so my other point here too about that Maverick series is the LeBron Dwayne Wade thing just never made sense.
Nope.
You know what I mean? It was a bad pairing.
Yep.
I remember that summer when they joined, I remember thinking, well, that pisses me off and the league is now fucked.
Yep.
But then I thought about it when I watched the first game. 'Cause I think they lose the first game. Oh, yeah, against us. They lose the first game against us, against Michael Carter Williams.
Yes, I was in the building for that
Yeah,
game.
yeah, yeah. And I remember thinking, well, yeah, that's right. There's only one basketball on the court. And
Yeah.
these dudes have been thriving as the main focal points of their offense for years.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And in that Maverick series, I think more than LeBron not being able to handle the pressure, because we had seen LeBron have moments in tight, high pressure situations, right? The Pistons, who were the kings of the East, you know, similar to MJ when in 2007 when LeBron goes, he has that famous game. Is that game 6 at the end or game 7? No, it's game 7, I think, where he essentially scores the last 24 points, 24 the last 28
against
points
Detroit.
Against Detroit.
Yeah.
In 2007. You know, a famous pressure situation.
Yep.
Game 7 against the Celtics. Again, we remember it being a checkout game, but the numbers at least suggest that he was still very efficient. He was still very, very good. It's just that he didn't do the extra thing. You know what I mean? The point being that I don't know how much in that Maverick situation, how much of it it's two things, and I don't know how to weigh it, right? It's folding under the pressure, and then this is a shitty fit. It's a terrible fit in the first fucking place, right?
Yeah.
And how much is this weighing on this, and how much is this weighing on this, right? You know what I mean? It becomes a constant wrestle between Dwayne Wade and LeBron. It's like, well, is it going to be Dwayne Wade's turn, or is it going to be LeBron's turn right now?
Well, I'll tell you why. It's him not being able to handle pressure, because that situation he created for himself.
Correct.
Because he couldn't handle the pressure in the first place.
Correct.
I can't take all the blame for us not being great, so I'm going to go play with him because he's already great when that never had to happen in the first place.
Yeah.
He could have gone anywhere in the league, played with anybody, and he chose a guy that first I like already, so it's easier to play with him.
Correct.
And then secondly, he's already won one.
Correct.
So he made that situation for himself.
Correct.
That did not happen organically where they had to figure it out. He chose it. That's on him.
Yeah.
And
so fair. Again, there is no defense for that.
Yeah.
I just want to really poke holes a little bit in some of MJ's competition. Again, it's hard to do because I do respect those teams.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The teams that he played, but on paper, at least, some of those teams are not necessarily as good. Well, I don't think. Here's the other thing. The teams that LeBron has played in the finals, MJ has not faced any team of those caliber, in my opinion. The 2017, I'm sorry, not 20. Well, the 2017, any of the last 3 years Warriors teams, besides last year, the 3 years previous. Beats the 73-9 Lakers Warriors. Now you can poke holes in that, but I would suggest that you can poke holes in 90% of the championships ever, because there's always a thing that happens. There's always something.
Yeah, we don't have to worry about any of that stuff.
Yeah.
Those Warriors teams are better than any team in the 90s.
Correct. That 73-9 team is better than any team that MJ faces.
Yeah.
And had the Thunder made it to the finals that year, that would have been better than any team he faces. Had the Spurs made it, the Spurs of 2013, the 2013 Spurs, that's the team that beats him in 5, right?
No, they beat the Spurs in 2013.
Okay, the 2014 Spurs then.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any team that MJ faces is better than that team. The 2013 Spurs that LeBron beats, I would argue is also. I think that team, if you put those teams in any of the 90s, I think those teams face MJ in the finals, and we see what happens. You know what I mean?
I would definitely say the Kevin Durant Warriors, but other than that, I don't know. I think Manu Ginobili and Tony Parker being guarded by Michael and Scottie Pippen, that's a wrap with them. They're
But you're forgetting the important Frenchman here, all right, who can also bring the ball up, which is what's his face? Boris. You're forgetting about my man Boris. You know, Boris can also handle the ball.
Yeah, when he's in shape, he's very solid. Yeah, no, I don't know.
He's solid when he's not in shape. I mean, like physically solid.
Yeah. Definitely the Durant Warriors. The rest of those were better than some, but I don't know. I think those Suns teams, that Sun team, the Portland team, though they would have been just as good. But competition overall, though, yeah, right? It's not the same. But once you get to the top tier teams in the league, I don't think the competition is that different. But those Warriors teams are only ever like that. Doesn't Kevin Durant doesn't leave and go play with them if LeBron doesn't go play with Dwayne Wade. Like, this is his fault. He set the precedent.
Maybe. You know what? I'm gonna be honest with you. The more I think about Kevin Durant in a vacuum, I just don't know. I just don't know. That level of cowardice, and oh man, this is a strong word. I don't know Kevin Durant personally. I just want to put that out. I don't know him personally.
Yeah.
Okay. And actually, you know what's funny is yesterday, me and TJ were talking about Kevin Durant, and we like his on-court persona. We were talking about the clip that resurfaced a couple of days ago.
Yeah.
Where they were playing the Wizards, and he told Steve Kerr to take him out the game. He was just like, nah, I had enough. You know what I mean? It's just, you know what I mean? And it was a hilarious moment to me. You know what I mean? I like him on the bench, the way he cheers on his teammates. I like his on-court persona, but it's when I hear him talk that it gets frustrating. When I hear him in interviews, and I'm just like, I don't agree with what you're saying here. Yeah. I don't know if that I don't know if that's not in him already to do. You see what I'm saying? I don't know if that's not in him already to do.
I understand that. Like, I mean, it had to be in him a little bit.
Yeah.
In the least, because he did it. But what I'm saying, though, is LeBron doing it makes it easier for everybody else.
Correct.
Like, we have to remember how shocking it was in the moment to be sitting there in that room and being like, what the fuck just happened?
Yeah.
When the decision is going on. Like, I'll never forget that day for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
Because it's about, like, I know for Kevin Durant it's not about winning.
Yeah.
Because he says it all the time. I just want to hoop.
Yeah, yeah.
I would play in the fucking backyard for free, right? That's him. Fine. You don't care about winning. You love playing basketball because you're really good at it.
Yeah.
That's also okay.
Yeah.
But that's also why you're not going to be the greatest ever.
Yeah, correct.
So, again, I would make an argument, and I think it's a fair one. Part of those Warriors teams being even created, stopping him from winning more titles, is because he started the super team thing to begin with.
Yeah, he created the monster.
Yeah, so like that's another situation that he kind of played a part in that took away from his ability to be great.
And actively plays a part in because he beats the Warriors that then goes out and gets Kevin Durant. You know what I mean?
You can't. I'm not gonna knock him because he won, but I mean that with.
I know.
I just don't think that him. I don't see that. I just don't see that playing out. Like, and the thing is, like, and I think it's fair to say because throughout the history of the league, superstars didn't jump to play with other superstars in their primes until he did it.
Correct.
So, but
I do want to point out one thing though, is that salary caps did not allow superstars to necessarily do that. Most teams, I don't think, could afford or were willing to afford multiple superstars on one team.
Maybe. I mean, the difference is like players make way more now.
Yeah,
right.
For sure.
So it was actually easier to make teams. So some of like the false equivalent arguments is like, oh well, the Bird Celtics, the Lakers.
No, it's no comparison.
They were already super. They were super, quote unquote, super teams, but it was different. They were organically made. They weren't getting paid nearly as much, and so I don't know. I think you could,
in reality, comparing those Celtics teams and those Magic teams, you have to actually compare those to the 73-9 Warriors, who it's this team that has a couple small free agent pieces like Andre Iguodala and David Lee, who they trade for, Andrew Bogut, I think they signed Andrew Bogut outright, but everything else is organically built.
Yeah. The other, though, giant blemish on LeBron's resume is the 2014 finals, which is the one that no one ever talks about on the national media anymore, which is so crazy to me that we can just forget and act like that didn't happen. The Heat, the team that he built, with two other perennial all-stars, Dwayne Wade I love his game, and he never gets the credit for being the great defender that he was.
Yeah.
They lose by 20 on average, 25 points per game.
Yeah.
That is the largest margin of average loss in finals history.
Correct. And famously, Charles Barkley said because they win game one. And that's the game when LeBron gets a cramp, and Charles Barkley says this is the closest that the Spurs are gonna. Which this is poking a hole in my argument as LeBron is the greatest, but it has to be said because this goes back to the point about the Mavericks. Although, yeah, actually, you know, let me just say this real quick. The way that Heat team was looked at that time was a little foolhardy because people were ignoring the signs that Dwayne Wade's career was on the back end. You know what I mean? His knee was shit. His I think it was his left knee was fucked or whatever. He was playing on one leg essentially for the entire season. It wasn't the same anymore. Chris Bosh had already shown to us that Chris Bosh was just an okay player. You know what I mean? That when he was on a good team, he wasn't necessarily going to. Now, again, I've made this argument again that LeBron and power forwards don't get along. So take with that what you will. But to Chris Bosh's credit is also partly the reason why that Heat team is why the league starts going small. You know what I mean? I just want to say that because that Heat team puts Bosh at the 5, puts Battier at the 4, which before that was like, what are you doing? What is this black magic putting Shane Battier at the 4? You know what I mean? But it was like, oh, in today's NBA, it wouldn't even be a fucking question.
Yeah.
So doing things like that would allow
Barkley
teams.
thing, though. What were you gonna say about the Barkley?
Oh, so Barkley. I'm sorry. Yeah, I got off topic. My bad. Famously, after Game 1, Chuck says this is the closest that the Spurs are ever going to come to beating this Heat team. They're gonna lose the rest of the series.
Yeah, he actually think like almost verbatim says like because the cramps they try to say the cramps is because the AC broke.
Correct.
In whatever the
San Antonio, whatever.
I forget they call it the Alamo Center or whatever it is called. Yeah. And he says like, you know, that it's like they're one, you know, broken air conditioner away from getting swept.
Correct. From getting swept, yeah.
Yeah, because the Heat win Game 1, Spurs win Game. Oh, I think Spurs.
Oh no,
win
no,
four,
yeah,
right?
I said it wrong. Yeah, no. Okay, so Heat win Game 2.
They win Game 2, yeah.
And win Game 2. I'm sorry.
And they win the next 3.
And then the last 3 to get blown out by 30 each game, essentially.
Yeah. So it's like, and they win the first one by 20 something. They lose Game 2 by 20.
No, I thought the first game was close.
Was it?
Am I tripping?
Well,
I thought the first 2. I think the first 2 games are close, and that's it. Game 3, 4, and 5. Kawhi averages 30 a game for the rest of the series, and they blow them out those 3 games. I think. But while you're looking that up, oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
But no, I'm just saying that. But they forget. They forget that. Yeah. So the Game 1 is Game 1. San Antonio wins by 15.
Okay. You know what? But that game, I do want to say that game is closer because there was a feeling watching that game that if LeBron is able to get through the cramps, that they can be. I think if you look at the box score, if you look at the play-by-play, it's one of those games that's like within 6 or 7, and then as it's getting later and LeBron is out of the game, it grows. It's not like the last 3 games. The last 3 games,
right? Yeah.
Cleveland is never in the game.
Right. Yeah. So the Game 2 is Heat win by 2.
And that's when Charles says that. That's when Charles says that.
Yeah, that's when he says what he says. But like Game 4 and Game 5, the Heat don't even get to 90 points.
Yeah.
Which is so crazy. And Game 3 they scored 92.
Yeah, and in Game 5, I remember watching LeBron flinging passes around, disgusted by his teammates at that point. Who again? Yeah.
So the worst. Essentially, I don't think it's hyperbolic. That's the worst finals loss in history of the league, and it's like you can't act like that didn't happen.
Yeah. No, you're right. I would argue that the Mavs is actually the worst finals loss in the history of the league. The Mavs beating Miami, because see again. That Spurs team, the way we look at it now, we look at that Spurs team as one of the like perennial great teams, like one of the all-time great teams that culminates in that 2014 win. And it's like, oh, this was one of the best teams. This is Kawhi reaching, essentially beginning his ascent. This is Tim Duncan still being effective. I think in the elimination game, Timmy still has like 25 and 12 or something like that. And people who don't remember the year before, Timmy in Game 6 and 7 put up like a 30 and 15 in both of those games. So Timmy is still effective at the very least. Tony is still effective, but again, Tony is very overrated. We don't have to talk about that.
Yep.
All these guys are still effective. It's a deep team. Danny Green, in the first 2 games, there was like a real argument that Danny Green could win the Finals MVP because he was just raining
Historic
shots
numbers
from everywhere. Yeah.
Yep.
And the Heat team is on its last legs. They didn't have what it took to run with LeBron anymore. You know what I mean? Now, that's LeBron's fault, to your point.
Yeah.
LeBron builds this team together, but, the Mavs to me is worse, right? Because this is not only are you supposed to win overwhelmingly, but this is you guys at your apex. You know what I mean? And you lost terrible. You lost in 6. You know what I mean? You didn't even take it 7. You lost in 6.
Yeah.
The Spurs, in hindsight, when we look at that series, I don't think the Heat ever wanted to win. And let's not forget, Timmy is one of the 5 best players of all time. And I want to shit on Steven Jackson real quick. And I don't want to shit on Steven Jackson because then Steven Jackson would probably beat the shit out of me if he ever heard this. You know what I mean? Unless Steven will give me the hands. Matt Barnes will drive here. You know what I mean? As we've learned. Matt Barnes will take a trip to Philly and fuck me up. Yeah, he'll come to me
to fuck you up.
to give me those hands. He'll send them shits first class. So all respect. I'm sure you heard them on the Simmons podcast because I think that's what you wanted to refute was all of Network's shit in the first 20 minutes of that podcast, but you don't even have to get into that.
No.
Steven Jackson talks about how Timmy wasn't the vocal leader that Kobe was.
Right.
And he's right. He's right. Timmy wasn't it. But I don't know. We don't know if Timmy just didn't have to be it. Because Timmy comes in and, like you said earlier, and I wanted to mention this earlier about MJ giving up the reins, right, to the coach. Mm-hmm. Timmy comes in, immediately recognizes, one, he's playing with David Robinson, you know what I mean, who at this time is one of the 30 greatest players in the NBA, right? And he's playing for Greg Popovich, who isn't established yet, but maybe Timmy sees something in Greg and is saying, okay, this guy is, maybe this is it, and who knows if Timmy just kind of gives that up. Maybe Timmy could have been vocal. Before that series, when they played the Heat, if you don't remember, again, this is one of the 5 best players. After the Western Conference Finals, Timmy says in the interview, the post-game interview, we wanted the Heat. You know what I mean? And that's probably the most vocal we've ever seen Timmy. That's spiciest we've ever seen Timmy, which is as spicy as what white people cook. When they cook chicken and it's a little bit of salt and pepper, and it's like, ooh, it's spicy. Right? That's the spiciest we ever see Timmy because Timmy is not spicy because even those comments are not spicy. LeBron tried to use that as motivation.
Yeah. But he's
they want to see us, but it wasn't real. Timmy said that they wanted retribution from the year before. Yeah. You know what I mean? They wanted that team, and that's what great players do. Yeah. You know what I mean? So, and that's another part of my argument is that at the time, see, this is a little bit 2020, right? Because you could say that the best player MJ faces in the finals is Charles Barkley. At that time, Charles Barkley is what, top 10 all time, you would argue, maybe top 15 all time?
Sure.
Right? And now when you come down 20 years later and you say, well, LeBron is going head-to-head with Tim Duncan, one of the 5 best players of all time, right? Or then he's going head-to-head with Steph, who I don't know where you put Steph, but the combination of Steph, I don't know, where is Steph? Top 20 all time? Is that maybe a little too? I'm seeing a lot of top 20 lately, and I don't know if I'm just being jaded by what I'm seeing or if he really should be that high yet.
I don't know if he's inside of the top 20.
But we are seeing, what I will say is we are seeing one of the greatest MVP performances at least put on by a player in Steph that year. Sure. That is Steph's apex right there. It's just falling thin. I'm sorry. I'm running out of stuff. I'm running out of fire.
So I think we should come back to the Tim Duncan thing in a separate time. But but I guess then if I'm just like culminating everything here, it's like, although let's say like Michael's willing to give the reins, right? He still never loses the alpha dog thing, right? Which I think eventually LeBron finds his version of it, but it's still not as great because with the subtweeting and the passive aggressiveness, which is always going to instill some level of resentment, right? Because you're not just being honest and upfront, which is I think what they mean by saying what some people say by saying like soft, right?
Yeah.
No, which I don't think is a really make sense of the word. It's like you aren't willing to be in those uncomfortable situations.
Yep.
So you kind of navigate them in a way where you can disassociate yourself from it.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of where Michael was saying, this is my team.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to do things this way,
Mm-hmm.
or I'm going to physically hurt you, or you're going to want to leave. And you are going to want to leave, rather.
Yeah.
Right? And this is what is the stark difference
Mm-hmm.
between Michael Jordan and everybody else. Because the thing is, LeBron is great.
Yep.
Bird is great. Jabbar, Magic, all these guys are great. But the difference is you have this level of athleticism with this much skill, with this much talent, but then with this mentality.
Correct.
Right? And then that's the difference is when you have this conversation with other people, it turns into semantical things like how do we define it, or you're pulling out individual things.
Yeah.
LeBron's bigger. LeBron's a better rebounder. LeBron's this. That's not it though.
Nope.
It's the combination of it all.
Mm-hmm.
It's the combination of it all. And this is why, in my opinion, and until somebody proves me otherwise, because I just don't see it ever happening, because LeBron I thought was going to be this until he showed me he couldn't be.
Mm-hmm.
We'll never have that again.
Yeah.
We'll never have all those, everything being 99 rating, including the mentality.
Mm-hmm.
Where I'm willing to burn this shit to the fucking ground.
Yep.
Or we win. But those are the only two options.
Mm-hmm.
And there's nobody else like that. And in fact, I think as time moves forward and everybody becomes a brand, and because social media, there's constant watching, and there's so much money to be made at all times, we're not going to have people who are willing to do that because it's too much for them. It's too much to lose.
Yeah.
But for Michael, losing the game was too much.
Correct.
And that will always be the biggest difference. And that's why any other argument for it is not good enough.
Yeah, and listen, we have stories. This is to Kobe's journey, right? Like if you looked at Kobe's journey, it's a journey of finding the things that that MJ was able to find at a far earlier stage in his career because of MJ, again, to your point, of MJ's wanting to do anything possible to win. And it's about, when you look at the greatest players, sometimes that's part of that conversation. Well, how soon did it take for them to find that? You know what I mean? You see, like Tim Duncan finds it immediately. Hold on, let me close some of my browser windows. It's making everything stupid. Guys like Timmy who are able to find it immediately. LeBron takes a little bit longer. I would actually argue that LeBron doesn't find it until Cleveland too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He doesn't find it organically in Miami. He really finds it Cleveland too.
I agree.
That's when he really becomes, that is when the actual conversation happens to me. Is Cleveland too, is when you can start having the LeBron. Does LeBron have a shot to be greater than MJ? That's when the argument actually starts. Part of what fucked this whole argument up that people forget is we have been arguing about this since 2009. You know what I mean? 6 years into LeBron's career, LeBron fans were saying he's the greatest player of all time. And it's like, he hasn't done anything yet. You know, he's done nothing but get swept one time in the finals. Right. You know what I mean? But again, one of the I'm sorry, I'm sweating right now. I feel like a fucking pig in heat or something. He had done nothing but get swept yet. You know what I mean? He was coming off his first MVP season, I think, that year in 2009. And people were just like, I'm like, well, he's not greater than Timmy yet. He's not greater than Kobe yet. He's not greater than Shaq, than Bird, than Magic, than Kareem, than Wilt, than Bill. He's not greater than these guys yet. Relax. He hasn't done shit. You know what I mean? He's a Hall of Famer by now, sure. You know what I mean? It doesn't take a lot to get into the Hall of Fame. And 9 times out of 10, you can see within the first 2 years. You know what I mean? Like, if I go out on a limb and say Ja Morant is going to be in the Hall of Fame right now, that's a pretty safe fucking bet. I'm going to be honest. I could put that money on right now, and 15 years, I would reap those benefits. You know what I mean? It's easy to tell when guys are going to be on that trajectory almost. Now, they can get derailed. Derrick Rose, great example of someone who kind of gets derailed because of injuries, or a guy like Tyreek Evans, who the numbers showed that might be something, but then after that, it falls apart. But that's way over there.
Yep.
The point being that the story is about when do guys get to that air, the air that is like, oh, this is what it takes to win, and this guy knows it now, and this is what he's willing to do. And that's why when LeBron loses that one against Golden State, that's why in this podcast, right, we're having this discussion, but you haven't mentioned any of the Golden State losses because at that point, LeBron is literally doing everything he can to win these games. You know what I mean? He is probably sacrificing children to witches. You know what I mean? He is doing whatever it takes. He's just an insurmountable wall in front of him right now.
Correct.
You know what I mean? Whether it's the first one when they lose Kyrie and Kevin Love and they're fucking marching out, guys like Matthew Dellavedova and whoever the fuck, I'm out there shooting a couple of shots if you look closely. And LeBron is averaging like a 48 and 8, something fucking astronomical. We know at that point he knows what it takes. You know what I mean? He just the object in front of him is literally insurmountable for them to overcome. But it's these other ones. It's the Mavericks one. That was not insurmountable. There's no excuse for that. The 07 Spurs one, you can chalk that up, even though his numbers are shit in that series. It's another one that people don't remember. People, but they weren't ready. The Spurs were the Spurs. Okay. So let me just break this down real quick. Because now I'm about to shit. I've come all the way. You've convinced me, right? And now I'm on your side. The difference between MJ and what I was looking this one thing up too, because I wanted to look at, if people wanted to bring up stats, we can do stats, right? MJ's highest usage rate year was 38.1%. That was his highest usage rate year. And in that year, he averaged 38, 5, and 5, okay, which is fucking crazy. And LeBron's highest usage rate year is his first MVP year. It's like 33. He averages 28, 7, and 7. Fantastic numbers. You know what I mean? He probably could have scored more. I don't think there's even a question about that. But the idea that he's just a far better passer than MJ just needs to be dispelled. If you think he's a far better passer than MJ, just go watch MJ highlights. Listen, they don't put up MJ passing highlights because that's like 5th on the list of MJ highlights. There's just like crazy layup highlights, crazy dunk highlights. There's crazy disrespectful defensive highlights. There's shit-talking highlights. There's a bunch of highlights of MJ doing MJ shit. And passing is like somewhere lower on the list. Larry Bird, you can find that because that's high on the list of Larry Bird highlights, is passing. But MJ is an incredible passer. He's probably as good as LeBron is as a passer. I would make the argument. If he was willing to handle the ball as much as LeBron was in the open court especially, like my favorite LeBron pass is the one-handed, like the look off and then throw to what's-his-face in the dunker spot. And MJ has a pass like that. You know what I mean? He also made a pass like that. But MJ's offensive game is so much better than LeBron's offensive game. 4 years into, I don't give a fuck. 4 years in is when MJ averages 38 a game. You know what I mean? There is no way at 4 years in, MJ goes into the finals and averages 19 a game. There's just no possible way. The reason he can only average, the reason why was because LeBron was at that point still very one-dimensional. You know what I mean? He was still very Giannis like right now. I got to get to the rim. If I can't get to the rim, I'm nullified. You know what I mean? MJ wasn't that. MJ could get 10 feet from the basket. He didn't need to get to the rim. If you allow him anywhere within 20 feet, it's too fucking late for you. He's either going to dunk on you, he's going to lay it up, or he's going to shoot a jump shot in someone's face, and it's not going to make a difference. So even if MJ somehow gets swept in the 07 finals, he doesn't average 19 a game. I promise you that.
No.
He doesn't average 20 a game against the Mavericks. I promise you that. No. There's no way the Matrix shuts down MJ. I don't give a fuck what anybody says. And there is a new thing happening where the Matrix is a Hall of Famer. Have you been seeing this?
Yeah. So I think that conversation started on the Zach Lowe podcast.
Fucking Zach. It's his fault.
Yeah.
Listen, what I would argue, he would have been perfect in the podcast we did about like 90s players that'd be great today. He would have been perfect in today's game. at the 4. You know what I mean? He would have been a 4, a stretch 4 on any team, your best defender. He could defend multiple positions. He would have been great. But this whole Hall of Fame thing, I don't know. And because, again, like we talked about, this is what I fucking hate about putting people in the Hall of Fame. You know what I mean? I'm becoming a Hall of Fame hater. Because then, now people are going to look back at that Mavericks team, which should be solely looked at as one of two things. LeBron choking or Dirk ascending. They're going to be like, well, they had like 4 Hall of Famers on that team. And I said, no, they didn't. No, they didn't. Tyson is not, because did you see the one post? I'm sorry, I'm pissed off now. Did you see the one post? People have now been posting this meme that says it took 4 Hall of Famers to beat LeBron, and it's the Celtics. Can you guess who the 4th Hall of Famer that they have in that picture is of the 2010 Celtics?
Hold on. Shit.
The fact that it's already too late because you have to think deep.
I know, it's somebody on the bench.
Nope.
No? They put Rondo?
Exactly. They put Rondo on there.
Okay.
I don't know when people started thinking Rondo's a Hall of Fame basketball player. Yeah, you know what? If you take one window of Rondo's career, then there was a chance. You know what I mean? Which is like when playoff Rondo becomes playoff Rondo.
Yeah.
And that dissipates after 2 years. It's over.
Yeah, it's a wrap. He's too uncoachable and confrontational. But I guess to round up the pod.
I'm sorry.
It's
MJ's the greatest.
He's the greatest, and it's not solely because of skill, athleticism, size, strength, all that stuff. It's all of that being at the highest tier, which LeBron is also at. Mm-hmm. Skill, athleticism, feel of the game, all that stuff. The difference between Michael and literally everybody else is putting winning at the highest, or willing to pay any cost to get to winning.
Now, but let's end it here. One thing I do want to say is, for as long as we've seen LeBron, it feels like LeBron has been in the NBA forever now. You know what I mean? LeBron is still chasing Michael in points. And he'll catch him. He's going to catch him. He's going to catch Kareem. He'll be number 1 all time. What is it going to take for you? What do you think it would take? Is there a world where LeBron becomes the greatest for you?
No, not unless something like completely unheard of. Like if he wins like the next 3 finals or something.
Okay. So, don't say that too loud. It's possible. It's not impossible.
I think it's pretty impossible, especially like after this year, and I'm not even counting this year. So let's say they're going to come back. Let's say somehow the Lakers win this one. I don't give a fuck about this year's one.
I do. I'm not going to do that. I don't want to do that.
You don't have to do anything.
But
I'm just telling you. I don't
want you to do that either.
And then, but I mean, like the next 3 finals. I think this year being.
So you have to win the next 4. That's what you're saying.
No, I'm not going to count this year the way. Win or lose, I'm not taking it away from. I wouldn't take it away. If they get bounced in the first round, I'm not going to
taking that away from him.
No, I'm not going to hold that against him either. But I mean, you could, but I'm just not going to. It's too weird and strange. But like, it's just too late. The hole that he dug for himself. He had to do all this just to pull himself out of that hole. Mm-hmm. Now he's never going to reach the height.
Okay.
That Michael got to.
I think there is a world. One, if he continues on the way he's going, he is going to. The argument is going to become. This is not a good argument. It's going to be similar to how people see Mike Tyson. Or no, maybe it's even better to really compare Muhammad Ali and Joe Louis. And this is for boxing people. Joe Louis is arguably the greatest. He's probably the greatest heavyweight. Sugar Ray Leonard has an argument. Let's just say Joe Louis is the greatest boxer. There's a lot of people who think Joe Louis is the greatest boxer of all time. But Muhammad Ali is Muhammad Ali.
Yeah.
So there's going to be a situation where LeBron is almost like a Joe Louis type, where it's like the numbers and all of this is impossible to ignore. But then Muhammad Ali is this singular force. You know what I mean? To me, Muhammad Ali is the greatest. There's a singular force, right? Muhammad Ali is a singular force. I had to cut my nails. And that's MJ. You know what I mean? And that's going to be how this argument goes because LeBron is going to have the numbers. He's going to have all the points. He's going to have all the fucking rebounds and assists. He's going to have all of it. And then if I think he has a chance to win I count this year, I don't care. If he gets bounced out in the first round, I'm using that shit against him.
Okay.
There's no excuse for him to have bounced in the first round. You know what I mean? And there's no home court. So let's say they do win the championship. They're going to win that without home court advantage. That's a thing that kind of matters. You know what I mean? I don't think for LeBron it matters. I think for Anthony Davis it matters to go to the finals and not have any home court supporting you. You know what I mean? I think that'll matter for him. Yeah. And it's, you know what? The thing is that just like this argument has nuance, the next few years have to have nuance. So if they see the Brooklyn Nets in the finals and it's KD and it's Kyrie and the Lakers win that, well, just a year ago, 2 years ago, people were making an argument, well, KD has now supplanted LeBron, completely ignoring that he's on this fucking phenomenal team where he's allowed to operate.
I don't understand that.
Yeah, people don't have context. People don't use context.
But that's just
and credit to KD. Listen, credit to KD. Those finals performances are excellent, man. His numbers are great.
Yeah, but
and he plays great. He hits a couple shots that are like fuck you shots in big moments. So I want to give him that credit. You know what I mean?
But the way that he's being defended is a way that he has never or will never be defended again.
Correct.
They're literally running away from him. He has the ball in his hands, and there you go back, and they leave him with the ball to guard Steph Curry.
Right. Yeah, because one of the most dominant forces, you know what I mean, as we talked about, the Baby Shaq, you could call him, the most dominant force in NBA history, one of them is out here on the perimeter, and everyone is fucking terrified. So I think there is a world where I have already reached the point where I won't even argue with a LeBron fan because 9 times out of 10, it's become worse than politics. You know what I mean? And it's like, well, MJ, look at the guys MJ's playing against. You like cherry pick some clip of fucking Greg Elo trying to guard him, and it's like, okay, cool, man, you got it, bro. You know what I mean? I can go cherry pick a million clips of fucking JJ Barea guarding LeBron and LeBron being shook as fuck. So. So yeah, I mean, listen, I think we did it. Is there any arguments I want to provide here for MJ? I mean, I don't know if there's anything I need to provide. 6 championships in 8 years. We talked about on previous pods, if he doesn't go out for baseball, if he doesn't break his foot, if he doesn't spend 3 years in college, then guess what? The points totals are insurmountable.
Yeah, and that's the thing about numbers. I don't give a fuck about the numbers.
Yeah, that's exactly
gonna
why
have a longer. He's gonna have a longer career, and And but the thing is, it's they're both great. Like at worst, LeBron's gonna be the 3rd greatest player ever. Mm-hmm. Right. So this is like we're talking about supreme air here. But that's why the nitpicking matters. That's what we're doing. We're nitpicking because of how great they both actually are.
Yeah. Go ahead.
LeBron, all the winning that Michael's done, 6 finals wins, 6 finals MVPs. 5 MVPs, and then all the little stuff LeBron has done along the way that put the chink in his armor.
Yeah.
He's still a white knight, but he just got some blemishes. And that's what's going to take it away. Like, we didn't even talk about LeBron leaving, just keep switching teams that have chances to win for non-basketball reasons.
Correct.
Right, to go back to Cleveland to rebuild my image and create a new super team and fuck the super team that's dying now that I built.
Correct.
Or to go to LA to be in LA and give up years of his prime and not be in contention. Can you imagine Michael Jordan not being in the playoffs in the 90s? Yeah, no, that's just it's crazy.
Yeah. Even though I think LeBron did think he could get that team to contention. You know what I mean?
But still, that's fine. But he left. Oh, whatever. It's just like maybe even if you think he did, a lot of people knew that he wasn't.
Yeah, and that Cleveland team. Yeah.
I was out on them from the jump.
Yeah.
And the thing is, it's like even if you want to argue the Cleveland team wasn't great, it's still the fucking East, and he owned the East.
Yeah, and one thing too, you know what? Thank you for bringing that up, because the other thing to point out here is the East that LeBron ruled over is is not good. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? But much like MJ running into the end of that Pistons team, LeBron runs into the end of this Pistons team, which another team that's now Ben Wallace is a Hall of Famer, and this Pistons team is getting a rap that's like way better than it was. 5 years ago, we understood that was the worst finals team ever, the worst championship team. And that holds true to this day. Maybe you could argue, what was the Seattle team from back in the day with the dude with the hair?
Dennis Johnson?
No. Way back. That wins when Rick Barry doesn't stop shooting in the second half.
Oh, well, yeah, that was in the 70s, wasn't it?
Yeah, with the Jerry Curl. Oh, Dennis Johnson. I'm sorry. I thought you said Kevin Johnson for some reason. Yeah, Dennis Johnson and
Dennis Johnson's on the team.
The curly hair dude. What's his name? The white dude. What is his name? He's in the Hall of Fame. What is his name?
There's a bunch of people in the Hall of Fame.
You're right. But he has a Jerry curl, and he's a white dude, big white dude.
Oh, Tom Chambers?
No,
it's not Tom Chambers.
No. Damn it, this is killing me.
Tom Chambers has what you call it?
You know who I'm talking about. Time great Supersonics players. This is killing me. Jack Sikma.
Oh,
fuck, that was killing me. With Jack Sikma on that team, maybe that's the worst team, arguably. I guess you could argue, but this fucking Pistons team is not good, and I will not hear it. I will not fucking hear it that Ben Wallace is all of a sudden a Hall of Famer. Hall of Fame what? Fuck. If Ben Wallace would understand, Shaq is still dominant that series.
Yeah.
That entire shit is falling apart. You know what I mean? They literally float. Imagine if let's go to Hall of Fame, Game of Thrones. Imagine at the Battle of Blackwater.
Yeah.
All right. Remember the Battle of Blackwater? Tyrion fills the lake with whatchamacallit, with what the fuck was that called? The green substance that
the dragon stuff.
The dragon stuff, correct? Yeah, the dragon fire, whatever you call it. I can't remember what the actual name of it is. Anyway, he fills the lake with it.
Yeah.
Right, and then the boats come in.
Yeah.
Boop. Flaming arrow. Everyone's on fire. Well, imagine, if you will, that is actually the 04 finals. The Blackwater Lake is the 04 finals. And instead of them having to shoot an arrow, the Lakers float in on fire already.
Yeah.
Into the lake of gas of dragon fire that will now combust as soon as they hit the water. Right. That is what happens in the 04 finals, and the Pistons just happen to be the beneficiary of that. That's why they make it back to the finals. They get crushed by the Spurs the following year. No. They go to 7 against the Spurs. Is that right?
7? I don't know if it's 7.
I don't know if they go to 7. I can't remember. It doesn't matter. It's not important. Then they never make it back, okay? And then, again, LeBron beats them. Then he has to face the Celtics, which people, again, another false equivalency about a super team. That team is, one, it's old as shit.
Yeah.
That Paul Pierce, KG, Ray Allen team is at the end. They have pretty much their first year is their really good year together, and then the rest is just that they had built the chemistry and they were just a good team.
Yeah, and there was not. So like the thing is like, we understand now that LeBron is a much better player than Dwayne Wade.
Yeah.
But at the time, it wasn't necessarily the case.
Nope.
Right? It wasn't like they were in completely different tiers as basketball players.
Correct.
So, like, there wasn't – KG's the best player on that team in the Celtics. There's not another KG-level player on that team.
Correct.
Right? Paul's a little bit underneath. Ray's underneath Paul.
Yeah. Correct.
Right? Where it's like LeBron and Dwayne are the same tier player.
Correct.
They're both top 5-ish players. And their prime, which is the more important part, is that they're in their prime.
Correct.
But they play basically the same position.
Correct.
The other thing too is like you can't compare Dwayne Wade now not having to guard LeBron because Paul's never fucking running around screens with Ray Allen.
No.
But it's too many holes to put in that argument. We've also gone like down a crazy rabbit hole.
Oh, did I? I'm sorry.
Like we're so far gone at this point.
There's a point. The point I want to make is that there's these two teams, but pretty much the rest of the East has been trash. Right. There is not another iconic Eastern
historically bad team.
MJ has to go through a very, very good Cleveland team, which is remembered very fondly now. He goes against the Knicks, the Pacers. There's a lot of like teams that are remembered fondly. The Magic before Shaq leaves. There's a lot of teams in the East that he has to face. LeBron is beating up on Al fucking Horford and the Hawks. All right,
just destroying them.
Yeah,
and then the Raptors.
And gets absolutely crushed by a Magic team, which never comes even close. That's as far as Dwight ever gets.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So he's crushing the Hawks, the Raptors, these teams that are just not ready to be there. His biggest competition is the Pacers, and that Pacers team isn't that fucking good, honestly. Like,
no, they were just big.
They were big. Paul George is the second banana. Again, I would argue that the only reason why it's competitive is because that Heat team just doesn't fit. You know what I mean? It doesn't fit, and you're able to push them around a little bit, and boom, whatever. They beat them anyway.
The Pacers were big and athletic.
Correct.
And Roy Hibbert was, and the reason Roy Hibbert was ever important was that he was that version of, and this is why Andrew Bogut was so important for the Warriors when they beat them, is that he could just be a body in front of the rim. Yep. He knew how to guard the rim without fouling.
Yeah,
which is
he should have trademarked the word verticality, because if he could have bought stock in a word, and bought stock in verticality, he'd be rich beyond his dreams, because he makes the word famous.
Yeah, right. He guards the rim without fouling, which is super valuable, especially when it's LeBron, because LeBron isn't making jump shots yet.
Correct.
And when he's playing in Miami, he's not consistently anyway in those big moments.
Yep.
But I don't even want to talk about all this other stuff.
It's just that the East is weak, and part of the reason why the East is weak is because LeBron makes it weak by joining Chris Bosh and joining Dwayne Wade.
Correct. Yeah.
Who, if they had stayed in their respective seats, he would have actually had to face these teams.
Yeah.
So I think we've done it. MJ is the greatest. You swayed me from my faux position of LeBron being the greatest. You know what I mean? I couldn't even do it half-assedly, without getting convinced. It's just MJ's the greatest. So that's it. Everybody, I think I'm gonna do another episode this week of 476. I don't know what it's gonna be about yet, but I just want to do one.
Sure. Yeah.
I haven't done an alone one where I get to talk for 30 minutes about nothing. So I'm gonna do that. Everybody, stay safe. Wash your hands. Wash your stupid hands. Stay home. I see a lot of people not social distancing. It's making me sick, because I'm social distancing my ass off. It's the best thing I've ever done in my life. I'm so good. Wow. I'm the Michael Jordan of social distancing. You know what I mean? I've been good at this. I've been practicing this my whole life. You know what I mean? So wash your hands, stay at home. Take care.
Yo. Yo. Justice for the blind. Just something that'll find in the rhymes that are coming from my mind. Used to come